Okay. Okay, so today we are going to share with you the story of Lily's Place. And in that, we're going to include how we came about, why we got started, why we saw the need, and how we have grown since we have started serving our community, and kind of how we've evolved through all of this. My information. So also, if you have any questions after this that maybe you don't get a chance to ask today, you're welcome to email us, give us a call, and we'd be happy to answer any of those questions. Okay. We are just required to say that there are no financial disclosures. And so we're going to kind of go back in history a little bit and talk about the Huntington area opioid crisis. So our statistics go a little bit back, and we have found that a total of 1,476 drug overdose incidents were reported in Cabell County in 2016. And what our community is a very small community. It's not a large community like you might be used to in Texas, where the state expands over 5 times what ours does. That was a 56% increase from the prior year. And we saw a 443% overall increase in number of overdoses. Those figures are actually not even considered to be accurate, because for incidents that are reported to 911, if 4 people were there and they all overdosed, it's counted as 1 incident. So it doesn't matter if there's multiple people there when it's reported. So although the number of fatal overdoses has declined a lot in our community because the first responders have increased the use of naloxone, we have also worked really hard in our community to distribute naloxone for free and provide trainings to the community. So there has been a decrease in the number of people that have gone to the hospital with overdoses. The total number of overdoses has spiked with the emergence of synthetic opioids that are 50 to 10,000 times stronger than the morphine or heroin, such as fentanyl and carfentanil. In August of 2016, our little county became famous for some not great things. One of those things was that carfentanil use led to 26 overdoses in our city within a 4-hour period. Unfortunately, this was a situation that put us on the national news. But it also motivated our city to try to come up with some solutions. And that is when we began our naloxone distribution and started working we developed here in Huntington, they developed a group that went out and followed up with people. It's called the Rapid Response Team. And they go out and follow up with individuals who have been documented to overdose. So they go out and follow up with them, try to get them recovery services and see how they're doing. So we started working towards how to start getting some of these individuals into recovery. So in 2015, Huntington drug overdose death rate was 116 deaths per 100,000 population. And our rate was the highest in the nation. In 2004, drug offenses primarily occurred within a 2-block radius. And then we started seeing over time that it started spreading throughout the whole community and was no longer just segregated in these little subset of neighborhoods. By 2014, the opioid addiction affected all demographics, with drug offenses occurring in every part of the city. Since then, the crisis has only worsened. So what I'm going to show you now is some maps. So this first map that you see shows that first number I was talking about, when this is showing you where there was concentration of drug-connected offenses that were attracted by our criminal justice system. And so with this first map, you can see in 2004, we had little areas in the town where things were happening. There were drug use, there were arrests connected to drugs. By 2014, 10 years later, the map is showing how it has spread out throughout the entire city. And then the 2016 shows how it's even expanded more. I don't have a map for today, but I guarantee you that it would be much redder and much more filled. We are seeing it every day. We experience it here on the streets ourselves every day. So why are we here? We've seen a drastic increase in the opioid addiction in this region. And in 2013, the national average of infants reported being born drug affected was 7 babies per 1,000 births. In 2013, 139 babies per 1,000 births were at our local hospital, where they are identified as being born drug affected. In 2015, 150 babies for the 1,000 births at our local hospital were identified as drug affected. So in 2015, 92.4 babies per 1,000 births had symptoms severe enough to require treatment. So Rhonda was working at the hospital, and she was one of the people who identified this problem, that it was happening. So she became very motivated, as well as other people at the hospital, for how do we look for solutions for what we are seeing in our community. With the increase of drug use came an extreme rise in the babies being born prenatally exposed. The explosion in numbers of the babies who were potentially exposed to drugs in 2014 and 15 led to, everyone looking for solutions. I think that before working at Lily's Place, I worked in a recovery program. I helped open a place called the Healing Place, now known as Recovery Point. And being out there working with individuals that are in active addiction, who are suffering from substance use disorder, it's really easy to focus on the adults and focus on what is happening with them. How do we get them in recovery? And I myself was one of those people who never thought about the babies being born affected until I came to visit Lily's Place and saw their plan on what they wanted to do here. And I think that is one of the problems in general that probably a lot of communities see. They are so focused on the adults and getting them to treatment that sometimes it's hard to realize that these babies are being born extremely affected as well. The national average is 7 per 1,000 births. Cabell Huntington Hospital is #1 in the nation for positive umbilical cord screens. So Cabell is our local hospital, and they were one of the first hospitals in the state to really jump on board with testing every mother that came in to give birth. When I went in to have my daughter, I was screened to make sure there were no drugs in my system. So they became able to really identify the babies that were being born prenatally exposed. So I really believe that contributes to why they had such high rates, and other hospitals weren't screening. So we have to look at, were they just missing it? Because these babies, sometimes they're sent home within 48 hours. Sometimes they're not showing symptoms of withdrawal until after that 48-hour mark. So our hospital was very good at that identification. And I definitely think that contributes to our high rates. I believe that we would have saw those all over the state had everyone else been testing as well. In 2017, Cabell Huntington Hospital detected NAS births at a rate of 139 per 1,000. In 2017, West Virginia's statewide rate for neonatal abstinence syndrome was 50.6 for every 1,000 live births. And this was tracked by our West Virginia Department of Health and Human Resources. This is the highest, in 2017 was the highest rate in the nation, and Cabell County had 62.3 for those 1,000 births. So we were kind of, once again, like I said, because of that testing, leading in having the most babies born prenatally exposed. We recommend universal screening for all moms and infants in an attempt to better identify those infants who are being drug affected. I know personally, when I gave birth to my daughter, I was not offended by the drug screen. One of the things that we feel really strongly about is if hospitals are doing these and this is routine for everybody, you're not singling people out, that maybe that will, assist with identifying these babies to where they aren't put at risk by being sent home without being identified and without the appropriate care.
So now I'm going to continue. This is Rhonda. Let's move on here. So what is Lily's Place? Lily's Place is currently licensed as a neonatal abstinence syndrome center. And what we actually do here is care for the infants with NAS and also provide support and counseling for their families. We are the first NAS center in the nation, and we opened our doors in 2014 as a pilot program for the state of West Virginia. And since then, we have served over 350 babies and their families. So again, what do? We care for infants who've been prenatally exposed to the medications or substances that cause withdrawal. And we offer resources for the moms and the dads to aid in their recovery. And we want to teach all caregivers about neonatal abstinence and how to care for that infant, whether that be the biological parents or family placement or foster parents. Everybody's going to learn about that baby. We provide a low stimulus, home-like environment with private rooms, and we encourage moms to room in and spend as much time with that baby as possible. And then, of course, if there are situations where dad is able to room in, then moms and dads can take turns with that. Our goals are to help this baby through the pains of withdrawal as quickly and as comfortably as possible. We want to educate the parents and the caregivers how best to care for their infant and help that entire family to be healthy. We encourage and support positive family behavior. We have a couple of missions, and the first one is to ease that pain of withdrawal for the infants born prenatally exposed to medications or substances that cause withdrawal. And the second is to build healthy families by connecting parents with the resources they need and programs to aid in their addiction recovery. Here's what we would like for all of our babies to look like. We're pretty good at that, but sometimes, they can be a little rowdy. And I'm going to talk to you about how we actually got started. So as Rebecca mentioned, I'm one of the co-founders, and I was working in the NICU at Capitol Huntington Hospital. And we were just seeing a huge increase in the number of drug-exposed infants in the NICU. They were staying for long periods of time. They were taking up beds in our NICU, and we were actually having to turn away transports of preemies and infants who actually required that intensive care treatment. So just out of frustration of feeling like we were missing something and what could we do better, I Googled how to care for drug-exposed infants. And what I found was there was a place in Kent, Washington that was called the Pediatric Interim Care Center, or the PIC Center. And they had cared for infants with NAS for about 22 years. And they were a standalone facility outside the hospital. And most of their infants were in state custody. But we contacted the executive director there. Her name's Barbara Drennan. And she invited us to come out to Kent, Washington and check out their facility. So what did we learn while we were there? My clinical coordinator, Sarah Murray, she's also a co-founder of Lily's Place. She and I had the privilege of going out there, and we learned how important the environment is and what a major part it plays in the care of these babies. The babies need a low stimulus environment with very quiet voices and dim lighting and private rooms, and not the typical hustle and bustle of the NICU. And we also learned that babies with NAS respond a lot differently to comforting measures. It is just instinct for us to bounce a crying baby, but we found that that can be very overstimulating, and these babies actually respond to head-to-toe movements. So you can sway from side to side or move them up and down in a vertical motion. And there's lots of other therapeutic handling techniques like swaddling and padding. And so we learned all those. And the biggest thing was we knew that we needed a place like this in Huntington, West Virginia. So our next steps. we came back home with a lot of excitement, and we were so enthusiastic about making all these changes in the care of the babies that were in the NICU. We educated the staff on the therapeutic handling techniques and the therapeutic environment that we learned about in Washington. And we attempted to make these changes. We even tried to designate an area in the NICU for the babies that had NAS. And we ran into the problem, though, that because we were so full, we have a 36-bed unit, but we were so full that we would get one of the babies discharged out of the area for NAS, and then we would get an emergency, we'd hear about emergency C-section and labor and delivery for a 26-weeker, and that was our only bed available. So then that baby had to go in that area. So our plans didn't work out too well with that. But because of all this and the overcrowded, the hospital administration actually allowed us to create a unit within the hospital that was designated just for babies with NAS. And we named that the Neonatal Therapeutic Unit. So, like I said, we had a lot of excitement and enthusiasm, and we shared this vision with a few people. One of them was a cuddler in the NICU. Her name's Mary Brown. She's also one of our co-founders. And she was really good friends with a local politician. His name's Evan Jenkins. And he was able to help us get connected with the people at the state level with our Department of Health and Human Resources to get Lily's Place started. It was a very slow process. It required a lot of prayer and a lot of hard work, but we were just thankful that we were able to get it up and running. But there were some roadblocks along the way, and some questions that we asked ourselves were, how will we be able to do this? And where will we be able to do this? How will we get funding? How do we get the babies from the hospital to our facility? And who will be on the board of directors? Who will be the administrative staff? And even the staffing, how many RNs and clinical staff do we even need? So we did find answers to these questions. And like I said, some of them took longer than others, but we just felt like we were determined. We knew this was what was best for babies and families. And we knew that we had to figure out how to make this happen. And we actually are located just a few blocks from both of the delivering hospitals in the Huntington area. And we were funded, like I had mentioned, with a pilot program with the state through DHHR, and they decided that they would use foster care money to fund us, which led to another roadblock, because then all of the babies did have to be in state custody, whether it be that they were already in state custody or the parents had to sign over temporary custody for the babies to come here. Thankfully, we do not have to do that anymore. And we are no longer funded by the foster care money, but we have contracts with the managed care companies through Medicaid, and we even have some contracts with some commercial insurances as well. So that's how we get our funding. The question of how will we get the babies from the hospital to our facility? At first, we used a state-funded transport system, MTM, but now we actually have our own transport vehicle. So we have made progress. I always tell the staff, we started out camping in a tent, and now we've moved to the camper. Another question was, who will be on our board of directors? And we decided that two of the co-founders, Sarah and Mary, were on the board of directors, and our politician was also on there. And then who will be the administrative staff? Mary and myself, we came over here. I left the hospital and came here as the director of nursing, and Mary acted as our executive director, and we had a secretary and a social worker. And then another question, how many RNs and clinical staff would we need? We decided, even though we were licensed for 12 babies, we decided to start really small and we did staffing for 6 babies. And we knew that we wanted to keep the ratio of staff to babies small. So we have 2 babies per 1 staff member, because we realized that these babies need their needs met quickly, and they can't have to cry for very long, because it's much more difficult to get them calmed if they go too long. So again, we had some answers to questions. They're still evolving, and we've gotten different problems, and we're still trying to find solutions to some of those. But this is actually a picture of the outside of Lily's Place. We are a locked facility with 24-hour security. And this was our ribbon cutting. This is, I'm not sure if you can see my cursor, but this is Evan, who was our politician. This is Mary, one of the co-founders. That's me. And this is Sarah. And this is Dr. Loudon. He was our medical director. So what's inside Lily's Place? Our building was actually a former podiatrist's office. And unfortunately, the podiatrist passed away, and his wife was left with this building, and her name is Laura Darby. And she had tried to sell the building to one of the local hospitals, but they decided it would be too much work. So she was praying about what to do about this building. And Mary was very well connected in the community, and she knew a realtor and told him, you know, we're wanting to open this facility. If you know anyone who has a building, then that would be great. And he said, actually, I have a building in mind. And he told her, like, go outside. I want you to park in the parking lot and pray about this situation. So she did. And then like a week or so later, Mrs. Darby actually contacted the realtor and said, I feel like that I am just supposed to give this building away. And he said, I know just the people for you to give it to. So our building was actually donated to us. And of course, it needed some renovations, some cleaning up and painting, and just we wanted it to be that home-like feeling. We also had to build a firewall so that we would be up to code. Our community pitched in, and they actually adopted nurseries to decorate. So each one of the nurseries looked different. Sometimes they did that in honor or in memory of someone special, or it may have just been like a ladies group or a church group, or even just individual families. So that means that, like I said, each nursery is uniquely decorated, and it does have that peaceful home-like environment that offers a place where families can bond with their baby and not feel like they're in a fishbowl with everybody looking at them. We do have 8 nurseries that are now set up for rooming in, and that's relatively new for us. We've had that for about 1.5 years now. And we provide opportunities for moms to be able to spend the night with their infants as much as they possibly can. They can stay every night, or they can stay just one night a week, whatever works for them. And then we also have 4 nurseries that are not do not have the beds in them for moms, because sometimes moms feel really guilty about not being able to stay. They may have other children at home that cause them to not be able to spend the night, and we don't want that to be a constant reminder for them. We do have 2 nurseries that are set up that can accommodate twins, and we have had twins a couple times. And we also have a storeroom that's filled with donations from people in our community that support us. We've never had to purchase diapers or wipes. We just have a very generous community that loves what we're doing. So this is a picture of one of the nurseries. And this is a picture of another nursery. We have a rocker in the room. This is our education area where families can get the training that they need, where they watch videos about therapeutic handling techniques. We also teach them about, safe sleep and the period of purple crying, things like that. This also can double as a waiting room. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our follow-up clinic too that we have that we can have in this area as well. We have a room called Kevin's room, and this was actually the first room that we had set up for rooming in, but it was just intended for a 24-hour stay right before discharge. So the families could kind of have like a trial run of how things were going to be at home. And the parents would be responsible for all of the baby's care, but there was nursing staff available for support and supervision and answer questions that they might have. And it just helped to build the parents' confidence and ensure that they were actually implementing what we were teaching them. And it seemed to really help them with that transition to home. This is a picture of that room. It's a little bit bigger, so it was hard to condense it into a frame. So what are the qualifications for babies to come to Lily's Place? And of course, as we've mentioned several times, that the baby must have been prenatally exposed to medications or substances that cause withdrawal. We want to make sure that the babies are medically stable. We don't want them to have any respiratory issues or any need for IV therapy. We can do some lab work or like repeat a newborn screen, things like that, but we don't want to have to give IV antibiotics. Right now, all the babies have to be West Virginia residents, although we are working very closely with Kentucky Medicaid to get approval for contracts with their managed care companies in order to get Kentucky residents, because we are located right on the border of Kentucky. Most of our babies have already started on medication to treat the withdrawal, although we can have babies here for observation to see if they may need to start treatment. The pediatrician can identify which babies in the NTU or in the NICU at the hospitals or the newborn nursery at our other hospital that delivers, which babies would qualify and meet these requirements. And we can also have parents request for their babies to come here, or babies that are in state custody. The CPS worker can actually request that the babies be transferred here. And of course, those babies would still have to meet those requirements. The actual transportation to get the babies here, we have to get prior authorization from the managed care company in order for the baby to be transported and admitted to Lily's Place. But as I mentioned before, we do have our own private vehicle that we use for transport, and an office staff member is the driver. It's usually me or our secretary. And then I take a registered nurse with me with a car seat and a transport bag, and we actually go to the referring hospital to pick up the baby. And the RN will get report on the baby, and sometimes even usually before we go to pick up the baby, she's already gotten verbal report over the phone. And then she'll go in, get the baby, and we transport back to Lily's Place. Mom is allowed to ride with the transport team from the hospital to Lily's Place if she does not have transportation. So what are the benefits to the baby for being here? Well, they have that low stimulus environment that's so important to them. We have that patient staff ratio of 2 babies to 1 staff member. We offer the opportunity for moms to be with their babies as much as possible, and that is a huge benefit to the baby. We really did not realize that going into this, just how important it is for the mom to be here for the baby. But the moms that are able to stay, the babies do a lot better typically. So we have those private rooms that promote bonding. We have individualized care for the babies. And we want to make sure that we introduce more appropriate stimuli as the baby gets closer to going home. So we don't want to take them from this low stim environment where the lighting is low and everybody's quiet, and then say, here, take your baby home, and you have 3 dogs and 2 kids and the TV going on. So We want to slowly acclimate them to a more normal environment. So we're going to put a mobile on their bed. We're going to get the play mats out and get them on that. We want to do lots of tummy time and use sensory toys and just work to get them to meet those developmental milestones. And we also have massage therapy. 2 of our nurses, myself and another nurse, are certified in massage therapy. So we can do this with the babies and also teach the families how to do this. What are the benefits to the caregivers? Well, we know that we have a non-judgmental environment. It is that home-like atmosphere that helps with the bonding. They are able to room in with their baby as much as they possibly can. We are going to educate them about the care of the baby and about all the therapeutic handling techniques, and let them participate in that care and give them that ownership that I feel like sometimes they feel like has been taken by them or from them, because the babies are oftentimes identified and then whisked to the NICU where they don't get a lot of involvement sometimes. And we want to make sure that they realize that, yes, you are the mom and the dad, and we want them to feel comfortable caring for their baby. We also have case management and peer support specialists that Rebecca will talk more about, but they're in this building and able to meet with moms or dads at any time, and if they're not here, like if it's after office hours, then they have phones that they're pretty much on call 24/7 to be at the parents' disposal. And we have counseling with our family center, which again, Rebecca will talk about. And we refer all babies to early intervention programs, whether that be birth to 3 or right from the start, that again, are looking to make sure these kids are meeting their milestones. They're going to identify any services that might be needed, and they're going to teach parents on what to do to help with whether it be increased muscle tone or providing tummy time, things like that. And then we're also going to supply them with baby items and clothes to help them after they've been discharged. So more support for the caregivers is that on-site case management, peer support, counseling, one-on-one education with qualified staff regarding the care of infants with NAS, and then the nurses that are certified in the massage and breastfeeding counseling as well. These are some topics that we cover in our education, just to name a few, but you'll see here that we try to cover a lot, not just about NAS, but we want to teach them about feeding and nutrition and encourage skin to skin. And we're going to talk about car seat safety, and even taking a temperature and when to call the doctor and things like that. We do the Finnegan scoring here as well as Eat, Sleep, Console. So we want to teach the parents about that and what we're looking for and what they can be looking for to help us with those scorings. Swaddled bathing is a huge thing that we feel like has made a big impact for our babies, because with the swaddled bathing, you actually put the baby into the bathtub swaddled, and that way it's not so overstimulating for them. And of course, we want to teach parents about that as well. You can just see here, lots of different topics. Working with Child Protective Services. We do work very closely with Child Protective Services. In West Virginia, all infants that are born drug affected or drug exposed are supposed to have a consult with Child Protective Services. And it is the job of CPS to investigate the home and determine if it's safe for the infant to be discharged into that home with his or her parents. If it's determined that the home is not safe, then it is the job of CPS to find family placement or assign foster parents. That is not what we do. We do communicate with the CPS worker weekly at least, whether that be by email or phone calls, to let them know what is going on here. Are the parents visiting? Are they not visiting? Are they appropriate? Do they participate in the care? We want them to know the good and the bad. We want to support parents when they're doing well, but we also feel the obligation to let CPS know when they're not. And we also sometimes, you know, the nurses and PCAs are in there with the babies more than we are. So if they have concerns that they're seeing, then of course they're going to communicate that to us, and then we're going to be communicating that with CPS. Now I have a little video. Let's see if we can get it to play.
Welcome to Lily's Place, the leader in the care of newborn infants suffering from neonatal abstinence syndrome. Neonatal abstinence syndrome, known as NAS, is a group of problems that occurs when a newborn is exposed to addictive drugs while in the mother's womb. The epidemic of drug addiction in our nation is exploding. Our mission is to provide medical care to infants suffering from prenatal drug exposure, while offering non-judgmental support, education, and counseling to families. Together, we can create healthier families and end the cycle of addiction. In 2014, we opened our doors as the first center of its kind in the nation. By using proven therapeutic handling methods, pharmacological treatment, and the latest weaning techniques, our staff eases the withdrawal symptoms for drug-exposed babies, giving them the best possible care available. Babies born with NAS require specialized care. At Lily's Place, each baby has their own private nursery that provides a home-like atmosphere, conducive to the low-stimulus environment needed while going through the weaning process. Our nurseries are uniquely decorated and designed to provide a peaceful environment for healing to take place, while also offering time for the caregiver to bond with their baby. This is Kevin's room. This room is available at the end of a baby's stay. Here, parents will be responsible for the care of their infant overnight, with nurses available to answer any questions that may arise. After a baby is discharged from our facility, we work to ensure that they are receiving the early intervention resources needed by offering on-site follow-up clinics. Here, parents are given baby supplies and patients are evaluated by a physical therapist and examined by a pediatric neurologist to monitor developmental progress. We also teach parents how to properly care for their infants and assist them in seeking treatment for their addiction, ultimately helping the entire family achieve wellness. Now more than ever, we must work to create awareness to attack the prevalent issue of drug addiction head-on. Lily's Place has made a difference in our community, state, and country by setting a precedent in the care of babies with neonatal abstinence syndrome. Without the support of countless volunteers and generous individuals like you, the need of caring for infants who were born exposed to drugs would simply not be met. Your generosity is the reason why Lily's Place has been able to better lives and care for infants and countless families who have been affected by the drug epidemic.
Okay, you don't want to do that. All right. Well, okay. Let's see here. Okay, there we go. One thing, you can probably tell by that video that was made before we got all of our rooming in rooms set up. And one thing that I forgot to mention was our volunteer program. And one of the ladies there that was rocking the baby, she is our volunteer coordinator. And we do have cuddlers that come in, and they are trained in the same therapeutic handling techniques that the parents are trained in. and they help us just comfort the babies. And they also do things like some light housework, whether it be helping us with laundry or just sweeping the floors, things like that, to keep everything nice and neat. But I can't believe I forgot to put our volunteers in there. So going home. In order for an infant to be ready to go home, they need to be off all medication. The only thing that we really send them home on is if they have GE reflux and need Prilosec or something like that, then they'll go home with that, or of course Mylicon, which is just over the counter. But all of the medications to treat the withdrawal they've been weaned off of those. They may continue to have symptoms of withdrawal, but they should not be significant enough that they would require medication. A lot of the symptoms may be seen as, 6 months to a year. So of course we wouldn't want to keep the babies that long. But as I said, the acute withdrawal should be over and the symptoms should not be significant enough to need medication. And another thing that we look at is what I talked about was the eat, sleep, console. Any baby that is being discharged should be able to eat their feedings and sleep between those feedings and be consoled fairly easily. We have to have clearance from CPS about where that baby is to be discharged to, and our case manager makes appointments for the baby with the primary care physician for usually 1 to 2 days after being discharged from here, just to make sure everything is going okay. Occasionally with the whole COVID thing, we've had an issue where they're only seeing patients, babies on certain days. So sometimes it's a little longer, but typically it's 1 to 2 days after being discharged. And we also, as we've talked about, do that referral with birth to 3 and right from the start. And we do an appointment with our Lily's Place follow-up clinic, which I'll talk to you a little bit about that in a second. We want to make sure that we send lots of goodies home with the babies, and that would include baby supplies and clothes and anything that we can think of that the families might need. So our follow-up program consists of Dr. Mitzi Payne, who's a pediatric neurologist. We have a physical therapist from birth to 3 that's there. Our case manager is there and peer support specialist. And then we have some clinical staff there as well. So within about a month after being discharged from Lily's Place, the babies are seen in the follow-up program. And then periodically after that, usually within the first year, it's 3 or 4 times, and then every 6 months. And then after that second year, they're usually seen annually. But we have been opened for a little over 6 years, and we have seen lots. I mean, we continue to see babies. Sometimes they move away or whatever, and they maybe don't make the follow-up clinic. But for the most part, we are still seeing lots of babies that we had even in the very beginning. So as I said, they see a pediatric neurologist, and she examines the baby just to make sure that everything looks good, that they're doing what they should be doing, along with that physical therapist to make sure that their muscle tone is good, that they have good motor development. And then if there are any other referrals that might need to be done, then we can do that at this time. And our case manager and peer support specialist, they're there in order to meet with the families or caregivers to see how things are going with them and provide any services that they might need. And then the clinical staff's there just because we love seeing the babies and how well they're doing. So what's the benefit to the caregivers? Again, it's just that connection with the people, that whether it be the clinical staff that they have been so involved with in caring for their baby, or with the case management and peer support specialists. And our case management and peer support specialists also do periodic calls and home visits so that they can check up on these moms. Of course, Facebook is something that they stay connected with them through. And it's just a never ending assistance that we want them to know that we are now part of their support system, and we want to help them however we can. We also have the counseling with the Family Care Center, which Rebecca is now back up again with that. So let's switch spots.
Okay, so as I mentioned at the beginning of all this, we have kind of evolved over the past several years. We have really looked at what were we doing that was helping the families and what did we need to do more of. When they started out, they already had a social worker, but one person cannot provide all the wraparound services that a family suffering from substance use disorder needs. Even those who are in medication-assisted treatment programs need some ongoing wraparound services. So we decided that we needed to do more. And we brought on our own recovery coaches to provide that additional support to the families, but we still weren't there. We still weren't able to do enough. So we started looking into the fact that we were providing all of these services in the NAS Center, but we didn't have the ability to bill for any of those services. It's just something we'd always done. So we realized not only is the need there, but we'd also kind of to get another situation started where we could bill for it, but also we outgrew our building. We had nowhere else to stick anybody. So we started looking into options to actually open our own behavioral health center. And the beginning of this idea was to serve the families that we were serving at our NAS center. But then as we got started, we started looking at the needs of the community and really focusing on what is not being done, because we didn't want to just jump in and do something someone else is already doing if we can refer families to there. So we looked at where was availability, where was there not availability that we needed to implement.
Currently, across the nation, we are seeing an increase of children being raised by family members, grandparents, or going into the foster care system, and that simply isn't acceptable. When Lily's Place was first created, we were looking at what were the child's needs medically. We weren't really focused on starting out with the social aspect of things. And as we have grown and served more families, we have found that it is necessary to have that holistic approach. After working with 250 children over the past 5 years, we have found that caring for that child is just not enough.
Once we started working with the moms, we realized the key to a healthy baby was a healthy mom. And so that kind of changed our focus. And so now we look at the baby and the mom as one. You know, they have unique needs, but we want them both to be healthy.
They've helped us so much, like, you know, things that, you know, I didn't even know that I didn't know, you know, and they don't make you feel, you know, bad for not knowing, or they don't make you feel stupid. It's a great place. Like, I feel comfortable walking in the door. I feel, you know, like I can talk to anybody.
We have to make these families successful. And that's why it's important that we start delivering those intervention services, those long-term wraparound therapy, recovery coach programming services that are essential for them to maintain their recovery.
Babies experience withdrawal for 6 months to a year. And, you know, it's great to put a healthy baby in the arms of a healthy mom, but under the best of circumstances, having a baby at home is stressful. And when you have a baby that every now and then they just have a day where you can't calm them, I think giving them a little bit longer care, both of them, might benefit them a lot.
I don't feel as helpless because I feel like they're, you know, here to help me. Like, the biggest thing for me was just worrying about coming home and, you know, maybe relapsing or something, anything, you know, can happen. Like, especially if you're in that same environment that you were. I really don't know where I would be right now. If I wouldn't have came here, I don't think I'd be out of that environment. So, I mean, it's completely changed everything for the better.
We care for those babies, and that is our priority. But we have to also expand to serve these parents to make sure they're successful in parenting these children. We are expanding. We are going to be opening a behavioral health center that will care for these parents and provide them the extended services that they need.
Okay, so that video was created when we were in the process of purchasing a building for our behavioral health center. We were fortunate enough to find a building that is about a half a block away from our NAS center. So we were able to easily serve the families that are at our NAS center, and for our staff to be able to go between the buildings as needed. Because one of the things we like to do is while a family is here, we want to have people on site to help them. So that proximity made that very easy. And so say our recovery coach has meetings here with someone, they can have a meeting 5 minutes later down the street with someone who is no longer staying at Lily's Place. So the proximity made it very easy. We strive to help each person develop the tools they need to deal with the problems that they face, but in a healthy way, helping prevent relapse of those in recovery and to prevent the onset of substance use. So as we're going through this process, we find out that even though our community has a lot of recovery programs, they're still always full and there still seems to never be enough. But we also found that prevention is neglected in our community. So our goal is we want to decrease the number of babies born with neonatal absence syndrome by helping the clients continue their path to sobriety and by preventing initial substance use by our children and adults. Additionally, we will be addressing the emotional, social, and spiritual health of our clients. We will address both the struggles with substance use disorder and recovery through the family center, as well as the mental and behavioral health of our clients. So as I was saying, our NAS center is only about half a block away from our new family center. So it's just around the corner. It's easy to go between the buildings. I actually have an office at both locations. We've made the access to services easier for our families because we have found that that is a huge barrier. Sometimes when individuals in their beginning stage of their recovery and they're brought here with their baby and they just don't know yet how to build those skills to do things on their own. So in that time, proximity is vital, being able to deliver services to them where they're at or make it very easy for them to get there. Because sometimes one of their biggest issues is locality. How do I get there to get the help I need? So what we are offering in our behavioral health center, we have the case management, we have peer support, and we have counseling. So our case manager delivers direct patient services. She is our primary liaison between Lily's Place and the Department of Health and Human Resources, which is Child Protective Services. She schedules doctor's appointments at discharge. So when a family is ready to go home, we talk to them about what doctor, pediatrician they would like their baby to go to, and we assist them by setting up that first doctor's appointment for them. And then we also try to do the follow-up with that individual and the doctors to make sure they actually showed up for their first appointment. So our case manager maintains records. She coordinates the follow-up clinic appointments. She will schedule them and contact the families to make sure that they remember they have appointments. She does follow-up calls after discharge to check on them, to make sure their needs are still being met, to see if we need to help them with anything. We want to make sure they know that once they leave here, that's not the end of the help they can get from Lily's Place. They can still reach out to us. We can still continue to help them. She provides the case management duties for the patients, ensuring individualized care. One of the things that Rhonda and our case manager do is they sit down together and they talk about treatment plans, but that's not just about the baby. That's about the families too. What do they need? And other duties as we request of her. So pretty much we are a small organization. We all jump in. Rhonda is not just our director of nursing. If someone isn't here and someone comes in crisis, she may be a social worker for that day. And the same thing with me. I'm not just the girl that sits in the office doing the business management. I was actually at a mother's house today meeting with her, addressing needs she has because she is comfortable with me. So we all kind of just get up and do what we have to do, and we don't stay in the defined roles that are attached to the titles we have. Our peer support specialist helps our clients with recovery education, helps them develop goals, and helps them learn to develop their own recovery plan. So that sounds really basic, and it is far from it. Our peer support specialist is in long-term recovery herself, and she works really hard for these families. She doesn't just work 9 to 5. She has a phone that she keeps on her that she can, if they reach out to her in the evening, or if she feels the need to reach out to them, she can. She's always there, but she's not doing it for them. She's guiding them and helping them do it for themselves. Counseling services. So our counseling is really evolving right now, because we started out with a counselor to focus on the families we had here. And then after many conversations with the community, lots of phone calls, we realized that the programs in our community are so filled with people suffering from substance use disorder that people with other issues can't get into counseling appointments. And that is really devastating, because that's a big part of prevention, is we have got to be able to be there for those people, especially in the time of COVID, when individuals and teenagers have been going through this isolation that is leading to extreme mental health issues. So we opened our behavioral health services up to individuals who are not just suffering from substance use disorder. Our counselor sees children who've been through trauma. It has nothing to do with substance use disorder. We have found that as a community-based mental health services facility, we have to truly be that community-based. We have to serve everyone, including those who are not already suffering from addiction, because we want to keep others from going that direction. So the counseling service helps with recovery from substance use disorder, counseling dealing with trauma, counseling dealing with abuse, dealing with interfamily turmoil, dealing with bullying. We see a lot of that. Counseling dealing with school issues, counseling dealing with working to prevent removal from home and schools, motivational interviewing, cognitive behavioral therapy, and trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. So what's next? So we offer these counseling services, but honestly, right now, I think we're facing the same problem a lot of other people are facing. We need to hire another counselor. We need to get someone else on staff, and we just honestly haven't had the applicants we need. We have found that we are most likely going to need to hire somebody and then further educate them for the things that we want to do. Because what we want to do next is to continue to grow, continue to expand our services for infants and children and their parents and guardians. And so we really have found that there in our community is a lack of children's counseling services, not quite the prevention piece we want to see. So one of the things that I used to do when I worked in the behavioral health years ago is do clinical impressions on children. And one of the things that we would see was attachment disorders. We see those a lot when it comes to kids who are in and out of the foster care system or who were adopted at a later age. And here in West Virginia, we have 0 therapists that focus and have certification in attachment disorders. So we're really doing our research to find out what is needed in our area. What do we have to work to get in our area? Because we deal with children all the time who are in the foster care system. We also have done some studies and found other places in larger states that are already doing programming for these children, example, school-age children who have been in the foster care system or have had families who they have witnessed the substance use disorder in their home. And even if their parents are in recovery, those kids still need that prevention. They still need an outlet for what they have been through. So we are really doing our research to find out what all programming we need to bring. So we plan on creating a whole division dedicated to children's services and prevention. All of that is currently in the works, and I can't 100% say what all we're going to do because we're still working on it, but we believe that this expansion of services will be extremely beneficial to the community. So what are these goals for the future? We want to lessen the adverse childhood experiences scores for children. We see or use trauma-focused treatment to rectify what they have already experienced. As I just mentioned, attachment disorders is particularly difficult to find help for, and we are researching how to do that. Our counselor will provide therapy with foster families to prevent frequent relocation and to provide a healthy situation for the entire family. A lot of these kids go to these foster homes with trauma already. They are difficult children. They are struggling to process what they have been through. And so sometimes the foster families just aren't familiar or ready to deal with that. So if we can provide them services, maybe we can help them to work with these children better and to provide a situation where they are ready to be in it and work with these children. Oh, I have another video.
Lily's Place provides medical care for babies going through the withdrawal process while providing wraparound services for their parents and their families. And so when we have the babies at Lily's Place, we can capture those families who are suffering from addiction and help them get the services they need, which is breaking that cycle of generational addiction.
They tell me that Lily's Place saved them. I think we try here and at the hospital to make the moms see that they have value, that they're not a bad person, that we're not here to judge them, we're here to help them and give them a hand up. Babies experience withdrawal for 6 months to a year. And, you know, it's great to put a healthy baby in the arms of a healthy mom, but under the best of circumstances, having a baby at home is stressful. And when you have a baby that every now and then they just have a day where you can't calm them, I think giving them a little bit longer care, both of them, might benefit them a lot.
We care for those babies, and that is our priority, but we have to also expand to serve these parents to make sure they're successful in parenting these children. So we have found that we have the need to take this more holistic approach of wrapping our arms around the families and giving them everything they need for successful long-term recovery. We say we have to love them through this. And the reason we say that is because a lot of these individuals have never been shown compassion or care. We need to provide a non-judgmental atmosphere to where they're willing to accept the help you are offering, and that we can capture their needs and provide them help with their long-term recovery.
So as we are expanding our behavioral health center, we want to make sure we continue to have this focus on that holistic approach. We are talking about how we want to bring in the children's services, but we have to maintain and keep up with what the families need as well. And so we see our behavioral health center even outgrowing our new space. We have to be able to provide those wraparound services to the parents to keep them in recovery. We have to be able to provide the services to the foster parents. We have to be able to provide services to grandma or grandpa if they're the ones caring for the child. Here in West Virginia, we see a lot of grandparents raising grandchildren, and that alone is difficult on a child, but also on the older individuals who thought they were done, and now they have to do it all over again. The foster care system is difficult. They try very hard with the families, but the CPS workers, they can't keep up with all the reports. And so we want to make sure we provide supports to those foster parents, the agencies who get the foster parents. Rhonda does training with foster parents on how to care for these babies. So we work with them, not even if the baby was not at Lily's Place, she provides that training for them to help them know the proper care for these babies and to know what to expect. Because if you take a baby home and they're not typical, it may be something hard for that family to handle. So with our future goals, we have a lot. We have a lot of things we want to do. We want to help other states do what we are doing here. We know that there are going to be challenges and that every state has different rules and regulations, but we want to help other places open facilities like ours to provide these services to the babies. But also we want to really let people know the importance of that wraparound aspect of things. We did not learn any of this the easy way. We have gone through years of getting where we are and figuring out our community needs. So really just taking a look at your community and what their resources are that they already have versus what they don't have and what is still needed. I feel like one of the things that I recently did was I talked to the NICU at Cabell Huntington Hospital. And one of the problems that they have had is finding counseling for mothers who have had a child born premature or had a mother whose baby passed away. And so those individuals also need the counseling and the resources because we do not want them turning to substances to comfort themselves in their time of pain or loss or difficulty. So there are so many different ways to look at things. And we have coalitions in our community, people that work together. We have a meeting every month with a coalition called the Healthy Connections Coalition. I'm actually the co-chair of that. And so organizations come together and give updates and let everybody know what they are doing so that we're not doing what someone else is doing and that we know this resources is there that we can refer families to and not have to do it ourselves. So right now, we're just continuing to serve the families here at the NAS Center. We're working really hard to expand our behavioral health center, and who knows, maybe our future will hold some transitional living. We feel like a really big problem is when a family is doing really well and they stop feeling like they need that counseling every week, and they stop feeling like they need something or you to help them with. So what happens after that? How do we continue to stay involved? How do we continue to know when they need something? Because we have seen moms who relapse 2 years after they have found recovery. So we want to make sure that we stay a resource for them. We've had parents call here a year after they've been out of here and say, I'm struggling, I need help, I'm afraid I'm going to relapse. So the importance of building those connections with the family so that they feel comfortable enough to reach back out to us, so they feel comfortable accepting the services we have to offer. I feel like that is really important. Rhonda, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
I don't think so. We're good. We're ready for questions.
Hey, everybody, be sure to type your questions in the chat box so I can read them. Somebody did comment and said that we need this in Texas, such a great resource. And they thought the facility was beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh, here we go. Let's see here. Amazing job. You all are doing an amazing job in West Virginia.
Thank you. I might want to add, since someone mentioned that they would like to see one of those in Texas, we border Kentucky and Ohio, and we see a lot of families who have their babies born at our local hospital that live in one of those states. And sometimes it is difficult to get the states to contract with you. We're currently working on Kentucky, but we've had some barriers with Ohio. So if there is anyone who wants to open a facility like this, or they are researching it, one of the things I recommend is Rhonda mentioned that we had a politician who was interested. Find leaders in your community that will take a real interest and invest and then help you get the state on board with what you want to do, because that is why Lily's Place was able to succeed, because the state stepped up and worked to make it happen.
We have a question. Do you get a lot of babies with sub and methadone caused issues?
With what?
Suboxone.
Oh, Suboxone. Okay. Yes, that is an important thing to keep in mind. And that's why I said that we care for babies that are having withdrawal from medication or substances, because the medication used in the treatment programs is still a type of opioid. So babies do still withdraw from that. And it doesn't seem to be related to whatever dosage the mom was on, but just that prenatal exposure can oftentimes cause the withdrawal.
Next question. What is the average stay of the child?
That is kind of variable. It depends on, of course, when we get the baby here, at what step the baby's on. But we have a protocol that we use to wean the methadone. We use methadone instead of morphine. Some places do use morphine, but it takes about 3 weeks for the baby to get completely through that. And just with the way the protocol is laid out. But then you have to keep in mind too that the more exposures the baby has, that oftentimes adds to their length of stay, because that oftentimes involves more medication that the baby has to be on in order to get through that withdrawal. So we found that babies who've been prenatally exposed to Neurontin oftentimes need to be treated with Neurontin and that dose weaned in order to get through that.
Another question. Are the parents that will be spending the nights screened for background issues being around other babies?
We have a screening tool that we can use, but oftentimes if we suspect any kind of issue, then CPS will make us aware of something like that. But typically we don't do routine background checks on the families.
We have a system up front. We have a 24-hour security, and our security guard, they have to have a picture ID. And when we run their picture ID, there are certain type of crimes that will come up, such as if there is any sexually related crimes or violent crimes. And if that comes up, even if they're a parent of a child, I don't even allow visitation. So they have the option if they want to choose to have their baby taken back to the hospital, because anyone who has that type of crime is not allowed in this building. So we do have the 24-hour security that does rounds. They don't just open the door. They round regularly. They check what's going on. They check the grounds. And then if we have any concerns where there's individual rooms, it's not like at the hospital where there's a couple babies in a room, that the other parents are not near any other child. They are only in the room where their child is. They don't walk the hallways. They do not, just kind of run around. And we have the high staff ratio to where we have enough staff to where they can oversee what's going on at all times, because we have the 2-to-1 ratio. So there is never a time where we feel like there's any cause for concern.
So big things like that would show up, but if it's just a little, like they have, DUI or whatever, then that's not going to show up on their the little check thing.
All right. Any last questions, final thoughts from anybody? All right. Well, I guess that concludes it. We truly appreciate you coming and telling us about Lily's Place and all the wonderful things that you're doing over there. I truly think that it's going to benefit the audience to learn exactly how you're helping the mom and the baby to stay connected and to get better. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And like we mentioned earlier, if anyone does end up having questions later, they're free to contact us. We're always willing to talk to individuals and answer their questions and help in any way we can.
And we've posted the PowerPoint in your Canvas account. So if you need to reference that or look at that again, it'll be in there. And if you have a colleague or somebody that didn't get to see the presentation, we've recorded it and we will be playing that back starting in July. So everybody have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.